My dad called me a disgrace and kicked me out. Here's what happened. You're a disgrace. Those were the last words my dad said before he kicked me out. I was 22 years old. 15 years later, the truth finally came out. But by then, it was too late. I need to tell you this story from the beginning, because what happened to me could happen to anyone. And I want you to understand how one lie can destroy everything. I was in my senior year of high school. I had my whole future planned out. I wanted to be an architect. My parents, Robert and Linda, always told me they were proud of me. I believed them. Then one night, my cousin Emma came over. She sat in our living room with her hands shaking, tears running down her face. She looked at my parents and said, "He got me pregnant." I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so ridiculous. "Emma, stop. That's not true and you know it." But she just buried her face in my mom's arms and sobbed louder. My dad stood there, his face turning red with anger. "Pack your things. You're not staying in this house another night." I got on my knees. "Dad, please. I didn't do this. Just give me a DNA test when the baby comes. You'll see the truth." My dad turned away. My mom screamed at me. "How could you do this to your own cousin?" Then my girlfriend Sarah looked at me with tears in her eyes and whispered, "I can't believe you did this. I don't even know who you are anymore." She walked out. By morning, everyone at school knew. The whispers in the hallways, the stares. People calling me a predator, a manipulator, a liar. Each word cut deeper than the last. I couldn't handle it. I dropped out 3 weeks before graduation and left town with just a duffel bag. I drove 4 states away. I stayed in cheap motels and found work on construction sites. The days were long and brutal under the sun, but I was determined to survive. Years went by. I saved every dollar. I learned every trade. Eventually, I started my own construction business. From the outside, I looked like a success story. But inside, I carried the weight of that betrayal every single day. When my dad died, nobody called me. I found out a week later while scrolling through Facebook. I saw pictures of a funeral I wasn't invited to. Meanwhile, Emma was living her best life. My parents paid for her entire college education out of guilt. She married Marcus, this polished attorney, and they built this perfect life together. Holiday cards, happy family photos, everything I dreamed of having. Then 3 weeks ago, their son Tyler got seriously sick. He needed a liver transplant. Emma wasn't a match. My brother Kevin offered to get tested. He figured since we have the same blood type, maybe he could help. But when the doctors ran the tests, they looked confused. The doctor said, "You're not a match, and there's no biological relationship between you and this child." That's when the truth hit everyone. Tyler wasn't my son. He never was. Emma had lied. And for 15 years, I paid the price for something I never did. Now my phone won't stop buzzing. My mom is crying on voicemail. "Danny, please come home. We made a terrible mistake." Kevin keeps texting, "You were right all along, man. Please, let's fix this." Even Sarah, after all these years, sent me a message. But I'm not responding. I built my life without them, brick by brick, scar by scar. Now they want me back, and that's not even the worst part. It's been 1 day since Emma's lie shattered under the weight of reality. For 15 years, I carried that accusation like a chain around my chest, dragging me down into quiet anger and a life I built completely alone. I thought exposing her lie would set me free. Instead, I feel stuck in this weird place between anger and exhaustion. I had a rough night. My phone kept lighting up on the nightstand, buzzing so much it rattled against the wood. Calls, voicemails, texts. My mom, my brother, uncles, aunts, cousins who hadn't said my name in over a decade suddenly remembered I existed. I left it there and stared at the ceiling, my chest tight with memories flooding back. The sharpest one was that night when Emma, all tearful and shaking, said those words that destroyed my life. I was 19. 19 years old with my whole future ahead of me. Good grades, scholarship offers, acceptance letters ready to be opened. Within weeks of her lie, it was all gone. I dropped out because I knew nobody would believe me. The whisper of a DNA test got drowned out by everyone's anger. My dad's disappointment was the loudest. He spit my name like it was garbage. My mom cried like she'd lost her son. Kevin looked at me like I was a stranger who'd invaded our home. Sarah, the girl I loved, gave me nothing but a look of disgust. At 19, I walked out of that house with 1 duffel bag and slept wherever I could afford. I worked overnight shifts stacking shelves and days hauling bricks. My hands blistered while Emma went to college on tuition paid by the same family that had abandoned me. The anger never left me. Not in 15 long years. The morning after the truth came out, I pulled back the curtain and saw sunlight cutting through the blinds. I froze. Kevin's old truck, the rusted one he drove in high school, was parked at the curb. My mom stood beside it, leaning against the hood. Her shoulders were slumped, arms wrapped around herself like she was bracing against more than just the cold morning air. "Danny," she called out, her voice hoarse. "Please open the door. Let us talk." Kevin's voice was calmer but desperate. "You don't have to say anything. Just give us a few minutes. That's all we're asking." I stood in the hallway, staring at the door, my fingers shaking as they moved toward the handle. For a moment, I wanted to open it. I wanted to walk outside and feel my mom's arms around me like when I was a kid. But then the flashback hit. My dad's eyes full of fire as he called me a disgrace. The anger in Emma's voice. My relatives whispering behind closed doors that I was a monster. Where were these voices then? I stepped back, my heart pounding. I couldn't answer. I wouldn't. My mom's voice shook as she tried again, tears breaking through her words. "Danny, it wasn't your fault. We know that now. Please don't shut us out." Kevin knocked on the door. Not too hard, but enough to make the sound echo in my head. "Danny, please. Don't let this be the end." I stayed silent. I heard muffled crying, shuffling footsteps, the slam of a truck door, and the engine roaring as it pulled away down the street. Only then did I let myself breathe, and what came out was more bitter than air. I convinced myself that was the end of it, that I could go back to my normal life. I was wrong. Later that day, I was at the construction site. Dust hung heavy in the air, sunlight glinting off steel beams. I'd rolled up my sleeves, sweat soaking through my back. Then I heard it. Kevin's voice. "Danny." I turned around. There he was, standing in the middle of the site, his face tired but determined. My crew stopped working. Metal clanged to silence. Drills sputtered and stalled. Every eye was on us. Kevin walked closer, hands raised like he was afraid I might run. "I know you don't want me here, but I had to come. You don't understand how sorry I am. How sorry we all are." I clenched my jaw, my voice low and harsh. "You shouldn't be here." He kept coming. "We were wrong. I was wrong. I should have stood by you. I should have fought for you. Instead, I stayed quiet while you lost everything. While you were 19 and begging us to believe you. I just stood there. And I'll regret it for the rest of my life." My crew shuffled uneasily. Heat rushed through me, embarrassment and anger twisted together. I turned away and walked back toward the half-burned house. Kevin shouted, "Danny, don't do this. Just one conversation. That's all I'm asking." I stopped, turned around, and my words cut like glass. "One conversation. You had 15 years, Kevin. 15 years while I clawed my way out of the dirt. While I slept in motels and worked myself bloody. You could have asked for one conversation then. But you didn't." His eyes shined, his mouth opened, but I turned back and walked away. Dust swirled around my boots. Behind me, silence hung thick as stone. That night, news started spreading through the family. Emma, who everyone used to call the Golden Girl, was being condemned in every whispered conversation. Relatives who'd praised her before now trashed her name. They called her a liar, a thief who drained their money for college, while I struggled to survive. The tide had turned, but it was too late for me to care. Emma's world was falling apart. Her son Tyler was deteriorating in the hospital, his small body fighting a losing battle. Her husband Marcus couldn't handle the lies anymore. As a lawyer committed to truth, he packed his bags and left, unwilling to stay in a house built on deception. Even though she'd hurt me, I couldn't harden my heart against Tyler. He was innocent. A kid caught in the aftermath of his mother's lies. That thought burned me from the inside. Calls poured in from uncles, aunts, cousins, their words sickly sweet with regret. We always had doubts. We never fully believed her. Lies, all of them. Where were these doubts when I was 19 and begging for a test? Where were they when I had to leave school, my future, my life? Then came the shock. That evening, I sat at my computer, the lamp's dim light casting shadows. An email pinged. The sender's name made my blood run cold. Uncle Richard, Emma's father. My hand shook as I clicked it open. His words were short, but they hit like a hammer. "I know you have no reason to hear from me. I know the damage can't be undone. But you should know that your father left something for you in his will. I won't tell you what it is, but I'm begging you. Come home and see for yourself. If you want to leave after, nobody will stop you. I sat back, my chest tight, my mind racing. My father, the man who dismissed me, who refused to even look at me after Emma's accusation, had left me something. Why? Guilt? A bitter reminder of what I'd lost. Something else entirely. For the first time in 15 years, I felt uncertain. Should I go? Should I see what he left me? Or should I let the past rot where it belongs? Driving back into the town I left at 19 felt like walking into an old photograph. Everything looked the same. Faded storefronts, cracked sidewalks, the same rusty water tower standing against the sky. I'd spent 15 years building walls around myself. I thought those walls would keep this place out of my life forever. But here I was, crossing a line I swore I'd never cross again. The air felt thick, like the town itself remembered what happened to me. My phone kept buzzing in the seat next to me, the screen flashing with texts and missed calls from my mom and Kevin. Danny, please pick up. We need to talk. Just give us a chance. I didn't pick up the phone. Every buzz felt like a knock on a locked door in my chest. I drove past the cafe where Emma used to laugh with her friends, while I walked by with my head down, burning under the stairs. It was still there, its neon sign flickering in the twilight. And then, like fate was testing me, I heard my name. Danny. Danny Hayes. I turned and froze. Tom and Jake, two faces I hadn't seen since high school. They used to be friends, teammates, the kind of guys who swore under Friday night lights that they'd never abandon each other. Tom stopped a few steps away, scratching the back of his neck. His hair had thinned, his waistline had grown, but his eyes still carried the guilt I remembered from that night Emma's lie destroyed me. Man, I can't believe it's really you. Jake shuffled nervously. We heard you'd left town for good. Danny, listen. We're sorry. Back then, when Emma said what she said, none of us. He trailed off, shame heavy in his voice. You didn't believe me. I finished for him, my tone harsher than I meant. Tom's jaw tightened. We should have. I knew it didn't feel right. We just didn't want to get in the middle of it. Everyone was against you. We went along, and we shouldn't have. I looked at both of them, saw how their wedding rings gleamed under the streetlights as they talked about their wives, their kids, the small lives they'd built while I was struggling to survive 4 states away. Every word drove the gap between us wider. I forced a thin smile. I'm glad it worked out for you. I walked away. Their voices followed me down the street until they gave up. That evening, I met Uncle Richard at a small cafe on the edge of town. The smell of coffee and fried food hung in the air, while the chatter of locals echoed in the background. When I saw him, my chest tightened. He'd gotten older. His hair was mostly gray, his frame thinner, but his eyes held a sadness that seemed to hollow him out. When I approached, he stood and grabbed my hand with both of his. Danny, he said quietly, like he was afraid it would shatter. I'm glad you came. I wasn't sure you would. I sat across from him, the weight of years pressing down. Why did you reach out? After everything. His shoulders dropped. Because someone has to tell you the truth about your father. He wasn't the man you remember at the end. Danny, he carried regret every single day. He never stopped thinking about you. I felt the old anger stir. He threw me out. He looked me in the eye and told me I wasn't his son anymore. He didn't even ask if it was true. Richard's eyes clouded with sadness. You're right. He failed you. But in his final years it tore him apart. He searched for you, Danny. He even hired a private investigator last year. He bought a plane ticket. He was going to come see you, face you, beg your forgiveness. The words hit me like a hammer. My breath caught. That's not possible. It is, Richard said quietly. But a heart attack took him days before he was supposed to leave. He died before he could make things right. I pressed a shaky hand to my face, my vision blurring with tears I couldn't stop. For years, I'd convinced myself my father hated me, that he died not knowing the truth. And now, the horrible twist. He hadn't hated me at the end. He'd wanted me back. My voice cracked. He never knew I was innocent. He died thinking I was guilty but willing to forgive me anyway. Richard leaned across the table and squeezed my hand. Yes, he wanted peace. He wanted his family whole again, even if he couldn't undo the past. Richard drove me to the lawyer's office. The building was small and brick-faced, with windows glowing softly in the twilight. Inside, the lawyer sat across from us, a somber man with thin glasses and a folder waiting on his desk. He opened it carefully, sliding documents toward me. Your father made arrangements. He wanted you to have this. My hands trembled as I read. A bank account with 300,000, saved and grown over the years. Beyond that, a deed. A lakeside house. A place I remembered as a child, where I used to run barefoot through the grass, the water shimmering like liquid glass in the sun. My throat tightened. Tears flowed freely. My father, who'd abandoned me, had left me this. A lifeline. A chance to start over. He died believing I was guilty. But he still wanted me to have a future. To be connected to this family somehow. I buried my face in my hands, sobbing. He never knew the truth. He never knew what she did. Richard's voice was gentle. He knew he loved you. That was enough for him in the end. That night, I couldn't stomach going home. Instead, I sat in a bar on the edge of town. The lights were dim, the air thick with smoke and the murmurs of strangers. A glass of whiskey sat untouched in front of me. I stared into it, seeing not my reflection but the boy I'd once been. Broken and cast out at 19, the scrape of a chair broke my thoughts. I turned and felt my chest tighten. It was Marcus, Emma's husband. His face was lined with exhaustion, his eyes sharp with purpose. He pulled closer, his voice calm but edged with urgency. I need the truth, Danny. All of it. Tell me what she did. I met his gaze, solid as steel. She lied. She ruined me. At 19, I had to drop out of school. I lost my family, my future. I left this town in disgrace. While she went to college on their money. And for 15 years, the weight of her lie crushed me. Marcus's jaw tightened, his hands clenching against the bar. She destroyed everything for you, and she thought she'd never have to pay for it. His voice dropped to a growl. You can't let her walk away from this. You need to hold her accountable for what she did. Sue her. Drag her into court. Don't let her wreck your life, and then rebuild hers like nothing happened. His words pieced me, triggering feelings I hadn't felt in years. The desire for justice, for revenge, for taking back what was stolen. Now, as I sit at my computer with the deed to the lake house beside me, and the screen's glow lighting my face, I can hear Marcus's words ringing in my thoughts. For so long, all I wanted was distance. But maybe distance isn't enough anymore. Sleep didn't come that night. I tossed and turned on the mattress of the half-renovated lake cottage. The ceiling fan clicked quietly above me like a ticking clock I couldn't stop. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my father's face. Lines deeper than I remembered. Eyes clouded with the regret that had followed me into exile. He'd gone to his grave believing I was guilty. That was the truth that choked me more than anything else. Another truth was making its way to the surface. One Emma had been hiding for almost a decade. The storm broke the next afternoon. Gossip spread rapidly from the hospital halls, whispered by nurses, overheard by visitors, carried like wildfire through the small town. It came to me through a late-night message from an old high school friend, Matt, someone I hadn't spoken to since I was 19. Danny, the message said, you need to know this. She tested 7 men. 7. They finally found the real father. It's Mr. Peterson, the gym teacher. Can you believe it? I dropped the phone, stared into the dim light of the room. The name echoed in my head. Mr. Peterson, our gym teacher. The man who'd yelled at me to run until my lungs burned. Who smiled when I struggled with the pull-up bar. Who lived on the edge of town in that shabby house with peeling siding. My cousin had destroyed my life by pointing a shaking finger at me when all along she'd been with him. Rage, cold and suffocating, rushed through me. I remembered my father's face, my mom's angry words. Kevin's silence. Everyone believed her. And all this time that had been simmering below the surface. The next morning, I found myself in the office of Daniel Brooks, a lawyer recommended by a former colleague. His office smelled of dust and leather, walls lined with heavy books that hadn't been touched in years. He gestured me to a chair and looked at me with sharp, searching eyes. Tell me everything. I did. Every detail poured out. The accusation, my family's betrayal, the girlfriend who fled, the years of exile. Daniel listened closely, his pen scratching across a yellow legal pad. When I finished, he leaned back and tapped his pen against the desk. You have a case. This isn't just personal tragedy. This is defamation, liable, damages stretching over 15 years. Your cousin's lie cost you your education, your reputation, your family. Now, with the DNA evidence and the hospital gossip confirming the truth, we have leverage. A strong case. If you're willing to fight, I can help you. I swallowed hard, my hands shaking. For the first time in years, I felt a fire inside me. Not just anger. Purpose. I left his office and went to the lake cottage, my father's final gift. It looked tired, like it was waiting for someone to love it back to life. Cracked shutters hung loosely. The porch steps sagged. Ivy climbed the walls like it had taken over. I stood there, the key in my hand, speaking into the still air. You wanted me to have this, Dad. Maybe this is where it begins again. Renovating the house became my therapy. The smell of sawdust, the feel of sandpaper smoothing old wood, the satisfying thump of a hammer on nails. It kept me grounded, but it also brought me face to face with ghosts. One afternoon, I went to the local hardware store for paint and tools. And there she was, Sarah, my ex, the girl who'd once held my hand under the bleachers, who'd promised me forever, then dropped me like a stone when Emma's lie poisoned the air. Her hair was shorter, neatly styled. A gold wedding band gleamed on her hand as she rang up a customer. She stopped for a moment, staring at me like she'd seen a ghost. Danny. Her voice broke. The same voice that had once whispered love in my ear. I didn't know you were back. I gripped the items in my hands, every muscle tense. Sarah. She stepped closer, her eyes glistening. I'm so sorry for everything. I was 19. I didn't know what to believe. I was scared. I should have stood by you, but Her words became noise. The betrayal still stung too deep. I dropped the items on the counter, slid cash over, and turned away. Danny, please, she called out, desperation in her voice. But I walked away without looking back. My chest felt like it was caving in, but I refused to let her see me crumble. That night, in the stillness of the study facing the dark lake, I opened my laptop. I'd been carrying the weight of silence for 15 years, but I was tired of hiding. My fingers trembled as I typed, laying out every detail of my story. The accusation, the exile, the years spent rebuilding my life while Emma profited from my parents' guilt. I finished with the truth. The DNA test proved I was never the father. Then I hit publish. By dawn, my phone had exploded. Notifications poured in by the hundreds. Old classmates I hadn't heard from in years were tagging, commenting, sharing. Danny, I'm so sorry. We should have known better. You didn't deserve this. She completely destroyed your life and got away with it. Unbelievable. Even people who'd mocked me in the hallways expressed regret. Some tagged Emma directly, demanding answers. Then I saw it. Kevin had commented, I'm sorry, Danny. I should have been there. I should have told you about Dad. I don't expect forgiveness. His words cut me like a blade. That evening, Kevin showed up at the lake house. I saw him standing by my truck, the setting sun casting a golden shade across his face. He looked older, weighed down by guilt. His voice was barely above a whisper. Danny, please. Can we talk? I crossed my arms, my chest tight. What's left to say? He swallowed. I was a kid too. I didn't know how to handle it. I believed what everyone was saying. You thought I was guilty. I snapped. And instead of standing by me, you abandoned me. Do you know what it's like to sleep in a car at 19 because your family thinks you're a monster? His eyes filled with tears. I regret it every single day. I swear I do, but I can't undo it, I said coldly. And you can't give me back what I lost. My education, my father, my life. You didn't even tell me he was dead. Do you know how much I hate you for that? Kevin's shoulders dropped. I was wrong. I was a coward. I don't expect forgiveness, but please don't shut me out forever. I turned away from him, the pain in my chest unbearable. You're 15 years too late, Kevin. I walked into the house and shut the door. The silence was deafening. My hands shook as I sat at my father's desk and opened the laptop once more. I had more to say. The world needed to hear. The courthouse was packed. Every seat groaned under the weight of people who'd once whispered about me, turned their heads when I passed, crossed the street rather than meet my gaze. I could feel their stares on the back of my neck as I sat at the plaintiff's table, hands flat on the polished mahogany surface, throat dry, chest heaving with each breath. The trial had been 2 weeks. 2 weeks of hearing my life dissected in cold, clinical terms. 2 weeks of lawyers calling me, the plaintiff, instead of Danny Hayes, the person. For 2 weeks, Emma avoided my eyes. Her once sharp jaw sagged in shame, her husband sitting stiffly at her side like a stranger. And now, the moment had arrived. The judge's voice rang out through the silence, calm and methodical. In the matter of Hayes versus Hayes, the jury finds in favor of the plaintiff, Danny Hayes. The defendant is ordered to pay $1.5 million in damages. Gasps echoed through the room. My knees almost buckled under the table. I gripped the edge so hard my knuckles turned white. The words sank into me like sunlight after years of darkness. I'd won. But it wasn't just about the money. It was about vindication. It was about finally bringing the truth to light. Mems. Hayes. The judge added, "You will also issue a public apology to Mr. Hayes, acknowledging your false accusation and the harm it has caused." Emma stood slowly, her hands trembling as she unfolded a piece of paper and began reading. "I, Emma Hayes, falsely accused my cousin Danny Hayes of fathering my child when I knew he was not the father. My actions caused him to be disowned, to lose his education, his family, and years of his life. I deeply regret the pain I caused him." Her words rang through the room, thin and brittle. Nobody clapped. Nobody offered sympathy. They just watched, their judgment solid as stone. Emma's voice cracked on the final word, her head bowing low. When she looked up, her husband had left. Marcus had slipped out of the courtroom before she could begin. When the judge dismissed us, I stood, my legs shaky, my pulse racing. As I walked out of the courthouse, the spring air hit me hard. The crowd outside dispersed, and there they were. My family. My mom stood in front, her hands knotted like she was holding herself together. Her face was pale, her lips trembling. Behind her, Kevin hovered, his face filled with shame, his eyes locked on me. "Danny," my mom said, edging closer. "Danny, please." I stopped right in front of her, the courthouse doors still slamming shut behind me. The air smelled faintly of cut grass and car exhaust, but I could only taste bitterness. "You threw me out," I said, my voice angry but steady. "I was 19 years old. I begged you to believe me, and you called me a liar. You didn't just turn your back. You kicked me out. Do you have any idea what that did to me?" Her face collapsed. Tears flowed freely. "We were scared. We thought I was guilty." I snapped. "And instead of standing by me, you destroyed me. You let me starve. You let me freeze. I was a boy, Mom. Your boy." Her shoulders shook with sobs, but I felt no relief. Only the hollow pain of years lost. Kevin stepped forward. "Danny," he said quietly, "I should have been your brother. I should have told you about Dad. I should have been there." I turned on him, my words burning. "You weren't. You stayed. You kept your head down while I fought to survive. You sat at the dinner table while I was sleeping in my car. You didn't even tell me when he died." My voice cracked. "Do you know how much I hate you for that?" He flinched like I'd struck him. "I know," he whispered. "And I'm sorry every day." I shook my head. "You're 15 years too late." The silence between us was agonizing. I turned away and walked past them both, my chest tight, my breathing ragged. Emma's life collapsed rapidly after that. Marcus filed for divorce within a month. Their custody battle was ugly. The truth of her lies, the public apology, the damage she'd inflicted, all came tumbling down. In the end, the judge gave Marcus full custody of Tyler. Watching her break down in court was like watching a house of cards collapse, unavoidable and permanent. Tyler's procedure was successful. I visited him in the hospital shortly after. The smell of antiseptic lingered in the air. The repetitive beeping of machines broke the quiet. He looked pale but smiled faintly, his small hand gripping an action figure. "Hi," I said quietly, pulling up a chair. "I'm Danny, your cousin." He looked at me carefully. "My dad says you're good. Are you?" The question almost broke me. I swallowed hard. "I try to be. And if you ever need someone, you can call me anytime." His eyes brightened. He nodded. For a moment, the years of bitterness faded. I moved my construction company back home, investing the settlement in expansion. New trucks, new equipment, new contracts. The social media post that started as a cry for justice became the foundation of my future. People wanted to see me succeed. Jobs flooded in. Within a year, my company was one of the most respected in the state. I drove past the lake house one evening, the porch lights glowing warmly against the water. I thought about my father. He didn't live to see me vindicated, but his final gift gave me the chance to rebuild. "I'm trying, Dad," I whispered into the darkness. "I'm really trying." Emma, meanwhile, became a pariah. People called her poison. She lost her job at the law firm. Her friends stopped calling. Her relatives whispered her name in hatred. She walked through the streets with her head bowed, the once proud woman reduced to whispers and pitying looks. As for me, I started therapy. The first session was hard. I sat stiffly in the chair, staring at the clean clock ticking on the wall, the scent of lavender thick in the air. But slowly, I began to process the years of anger, grief, shame. Slowly, I started to heal. My family calls me fairly often now. I let the phone ring before answering, keeping conversations brief and polite. I'm not ready to sit across from them. Not ready to share a table or a meal. But baby steps. For the first time in 15 years, I'm not defined by a lie. I'm not the boy who was kicked out. I'm Danny Hayes. A man who survived, fought back, and won.